Okay, is everybody comfortable? Great. Now the reason we're all here is that you folks are going to upgrade to the NT 3.5 server for its centralized administration and security, and you're trying to figure out how to design a network architecture. Well, the key to designing an NT network is to understand domains. Every major NT server network consists of one or more domains. I've got a couple of short videos here, and I'd like to show you the first one right now.
Small groups or organizations often use peer-to-peer networking. Resources and administration are distributed throughout the network. With distributed administration, each workgroup account must be added to each computer separately, and each computer will require its own separate user accounts database. Each computer has its own administrator to maintain its own accounts, security, and resources. There is little a centralized administrator can do to regulate either resources or users. As a company grows, the network grows, as does the need for centralized administration and security. But with a peer-to-peer network, the more the network grows, the less administrative and security control you have. The solution was to use a server-based network architecture. But a network with only one server cannot handle the large numbers of users a modern company has. To handle the ever-increasing numbers of accounts and additional resources, networks began adding more servers. But this led to the same original problem of losing control because each server required its own user accounts database, with the administrator duplicating a lot of account management. This also created headaches for users because a user needed an account on each server in order to use the resources on that server, and they often had to remember a different username and password for each server. The multi-server problem was solved by grouping the servers into a logical organization called a domain. A domain consists of one or more servers running Windows NT Server software. Together, they function as a single administrative unit by centralizing account administration and security policies in a master database on one server. This server is called the Primary Domain Controller, or PDC. All the servers in this domain share the user, group, and security policy information in this database, so all the accounts for the entire domain can now be managed from a single point. In addition to the single PDC, a domain can have one or more Windows NT 3.5 servers acting as a backup domain controller, or BDC. Each BDC contains a copy of the PDC's database. The BDCs help distribute the administrative load because they can validate users logging on, and if the PDC goes offline, they provide redundancy for logon to the domain. To ensure consistency among all the databases, the PDC replicates its master accounts database periodically to the BDCs. A domain may also have one or more other servers that are neither PDCs nor BDCs. These computers, known simply as servers, are used to run large, complex programs and store data. Servers can be very effective at doing their tasks because they don't carry the overhead of managing user logons. They are excellent platforms for running applications such as Microsoft SQL Server, Microsoft SNA Server, RAS servers supporting up to 256 simultaneous connections, and they can be Macintosh file and print servers. And, of course, a domain has workstations, which users use to access what servers share. A workstation that is part of a workgroup can join a domain, but once it joins a domain, it is no longer part of a workgroup. A workgroup may be adequate for small groups of 4 to 6 computers where centralized control may not be an issue. As networks grow, a server-based approach increases capacity, but this model is also soon reaching reasonable limits. With domains, network administrators can manage large numbers of users and security from a single machine, the PDC. The PDC periodically replicates its account and security information to BDCs. The domain may also contain other servers which run applications and store data. Finally, workstations can join a domain so that users can work either locally or in the domain environment.
The next topic I want to cover is trusts. And to understand what they are and why they're important, let's go back a second. And we all know that work groups were fine for small groups, but we kept adding connections until we lost control, so we centralized with a server. And then we kept adding servers until we lost control, so we centralized with a domain. But as the network expands, we keep adding domains. Now, when you have more than one domain, how do you keep control? Let's take a look.
Microsoft solved the problem of multiple domains with a network management device called a trust. Trusts are links that combine two domains into a single administrative unit. Trusts make it possible to create only one account for each user and keep all the accounts in one domain. The accounts domain is called the trusted domain, and the resource domain is called the trusting domain. In addition to centralizing user account administration, trusts make it possible for users to access resources more easily. A user who logs onto the trusted domain can use resources in that domain and in the trusting domain, even though that user has no account in the trusting domain. It is important to keep in mind that although the user accounts are maintained in a single database on the trusted domain, each trusting domain still has an accounts database for managing resources. We'll see more about this in the module on groups.
So is that pretty clear for everyone?
Well, wait a minute. Trusts make sense, but I'm a little bit confused about the arrows. It seems like the arrows point the wrong direction.
Yeah, this is a real common issue because a lot of the diagrams that we're used to looking at have arrows that point in the direction that the user goes through the system. But what we're talking about here is how administrators handle accounts. Now, the phrase we like to use is, you point to people you trust. Think of it this way. John and Sally, you both manage resources and people, but you spend a lot of your time making your resources available to each other's people. So you decide to make your lives a little easier by having John here handle all the administrative tasks for everyone. And the way you do this is by creating a trust relationship with him. Here, go ahead and point to him. Okay, now you trust John. You're the trusting person, and John is the trusted person. So it works exactly the same way with domains. You just have to bear in mind that the trusting domain always points at the domain that is trusted with the accounts. So does that help?
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Well, let's move on then.
Trusts are not transitive. For example, say you have 3 domains. The third domain trusts the second, and the second trusts the first. A user logging on to the second domain can access resources in the second or third domain, and a user logging on to the first domain can access resources in the first and second domains, but cannot access resources in the third domain. Only after a trust has been set up directly between the third and first domains can a user in the first domain gain access to resources in the third domain. This provides the network administrator with a widespread level of security control over who has access to what resources.
Excuse me. I have a question.
Yeah, what is it?
I understand the concept, but I'm bothered by the issue of physical access. Now, if I'm physically hooked up to a network in the trusting domain, but I have an account in the trusted domain, then how can I still get logged on?
Good question. Physical location isn't important with Windows NT. As long as you have a physical network pathway and you have the trust relationship set up, NT will make the connections automatically.
So you mean it's kind of like calling somebody on the phone?
Yeah, exactly. So it doesn't matter if you're at the office or at home or on a cell phone. What matters is that you dial the number of the person you want to call and the phone company routes it automatically.
Well, that makes sense.
All right. Well, let's finish up looking at trust then.
Domains solve the problem of multiple servers by linking them into a centrally managed unit. Trusts solve the problem of multiple domains by linking them into a centrally managed unit. The accounts domain is the trusted domain, and the resource domain is the trusting domain. Trusts are not transitive. in order for a user to use resources on a trusting domain, a trust must exist directly between the trusting domain and the trusted domain. It doesn't matter where a user is physically located if the user has an account on the trusted domain.
Now, the next thing I want to cover is groups. Groups are the real key to efficiency and security in domains. Now, groups give you efficiency in three ways. First, by assigning accounts to groups, you can set permissions once for the entire group rather than having to do it one account at a time. Second, NT has built-in groups that have specific sets of user rights and permissions already pre-assigned. All you have to do is assign accounts to the groups, and they're ready to go. And third, you can create global groups that can be accessed from any number of trusting domains. So let's take a look here at groups.
Groups are management tools that make it possible for an administrator to treat large numbers of users as one account. For example, if 8 users need read access to a file, an administrator would have to grant read access 8 separate times, one for each user. But if all the users are part of a group, the administrator only has to grant permissions for that resource once to give all the accounts the same read permissions. Groups are managed as part of a domain's accounts database. As mentioned in the Trusts module, every domain has an accounts database. The question is, what is in that database? On the trusted domain, the accounts database contains the user accounts, local groups, and global groups. On a trusting domain, the accounts database contains only local groups, which are used specifically for managing resources. Let's start with a closer look at local groups. To make life easier for you, NT 3.5 includes numerous built-in local groups. Each built-in group has already been set up to give its members the authority to perform a specific set of network management tasks. You use a built-in group the same as any other group. You simply add the account name to the group, and that person automatically has all of the authority and security limitations that are built into the group. The most powerful built-in group is the administrator's group, because it is at the highest authority level allowed on the network. The administrators group can create, delete, and manage user accounts, local groups, global groups, directories, and printers. There is also a set of built-in groups called operator groups. The 4 built-in operator groups let you delegate specific network tasks without losing control or security. Accounts assigned to the server operator group can lock a server or override a lock, and back up, restore, or shut down servers. Accounts in the account operators group can create, modify, and delete users, local groups, and global groups. Accounts in the print operators group can share printers and stop sharing printers. And accounts in the backup operators group can back up and restore files. The built-in operator groups perform most normal network management tasks. However, this does not include permissions to use resources. The administrator needs to create non-built-in local groups specific to the resources that users need to access. While local groups affect only the domain in which they were created, global groups can function beyond their own domains through the trust relationships you have set up. To use a global group, you add user accounts to a global group in an account domain, then assign the global group to local groups in trusting domains. For example, to back up all the servers on the network, the administrator creates a global group called Backup in the account domain and assigns the user account to Backup. The administrator assigns the global group Backup to the built-in local group Backup Operators in its own domain and in each trusting domain. Now the user in the global backup group has backup permission on all servers in all of the resource domains that include the global backup group in their local backup group. If this user leaves the department, you simply remove the user's account from the global backup group, and that user no longer has backup permission anywhere. To add a new global backup operator, you just add a new user to the global group. This way, once your global groups are established, you only need to change the user's account in one place, the global group, to change permission on numerous domains, so you save a lot of time managing accounts. Groups save time and provide security. An administrator can handle permissions for many user accounts at once with a group. Save time by using the predefined built-in local groups. And an administrator can manage an account on many domains at once with a global group.
Okay, now the final piece of the puzzle here, your final challenge, is to take everything that we've learned about domains and trusts and groups and put them all together into a corporate-wide network architecture. Well, fortunately, this is really pretty straightforward because every NT network server system uses one of 4 domain models. And my next video here shows you what these 4 models are and talks about how to decide which of the 4 would be best suited to your circumstances.
There are 4 domain models you can use for your NT 3.5 server-based network. This section describes the 4 models and which network configuration each is appropriate for. Let's start with the single domain model. The single domain model consists of only one domain. Accounts are kept in the master domain account database on the primary domain controller. The single domain model is good for a network of less than 15,000 users who want centralized administration of user accounts and resources. Expanding networks or a changing organization may require the flexibility of the master domain model. In the master domain model, there is one master domain on which all user accounts are maintained. One or more resource domains are linked to the master domain with trusts. The master domain is the trusted domain, and all of the resource domains are trusting domains. Because of the way the trusts are implemented, users with accounts in the master domain are able to use resources in all the other domains. The master domain model may be the best choice for companies with fewer than 15,000 users who want to take advantage of centralized account management while allowing resources to be managed locally in the resource domains of various divisions and departments. Further growth or divisions within a company may lead you to use the multiple master domain model. In this model, there are 2 or more master domains and 1 or more resource domains. The master domains serve as account domains, and every account is created on one of these. Each account is still created only once. Each master domain trusts all of the other master domains, and every resource domain trusts all of the master domains. But the resource domains don't trust each other. Because of this trust relationship, every user account in the company will be able to access resources in all domains. An important administrative consideration is that global groups require slightly more effort to administer in the multiple master domain model. To handle a global group, the network administrator has to create an equivalent global group in each master domain. All of these global groups, however, can be assigned to the same local group in any of the resource domains. The multiple master domain model can grow to accommodate any number of users, but is used for the same purposes as the master domain model. A large organization may want the management of users and resources distributed rather than centralized. In the complete trust model, every domain on the network trusts every other domain. The complete trust model distributes the administration of accounts and resources among different domains. Because of the number of trusts this model requires, it may not always be a practical model for large organizations that require tightly controlled security. The complete trust model requires each domain administrator to carefully screen and select the users who will be assigned to local and global groups. The complete trust model is scalable to networks with any number of users. It is best for companies where both users and resources are grouped into departmental units and where each department has full control over its own user accounts and resources. The 4 domain models provide a network architecture for any organization, from the simplest to the most complex. The single domain may be the best design for smaller companies that want centralized account administration. There are no trusts to manage. The master domain model may be the best choice for smaller companies that want centralized account administration, but decentralized control of resources. The multiple master domain model is a good network plan for large companies that need centralized account management, but decentralized control of resources. And the complete trust model may be the best network plan for companies of any size that do not have a centralized MIS control, so each department has full control over its own accounts and resources.